Tyler,
Hey,
hello. How are
how's it
you doing on
going?
this beautiful Tuesday?
Well, I mean, it's not like super, it is beautiful. It's not weather-wise, maybe not as beautiful where I'm at, but yeah.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to be chatting about hiring employees over Zoom because that's how we do it now. And that's how you've been
Yep,
doing it for a long time.
it's very true.
Um, with the experience you have, I'm sure you've interviewed your fair share of great candidates and then ones that maybe fell a little short.
Sure.
So I would love to hear from you. We have some questions, of course, but what are some, like maybe three tips that you have for people that are hiring candidates over Zoom?
Yeah, this is huge too. Like obviously in the last year with everyone going remote and like forced remote more so, I suppose, and like but still needing to figure out how to grow their businesses or people turnover, employee turnover, whatnot. So everybody's doing it. I'd love to say that we started a remote business before it was cool to be remote, but we started remote and have never had an office. So I think one of the things that's unique, and I can talk about it later, but like we just didn't create we didn't create a culture that was trying to replace things that we used to do in person. And so it's kind of like people then constantly are comparing, well, we used to do staff meetings in a conference room and now we're doing it via remote and it sucks. Well, we don't have that. We don't have the comparison. So we've had to develop kind of how we do things like maybe a little more creatively than the average because of the fact that we're not using it to replace something that we're getting back to later. So
Mhm.
um, as far as kind of tips go, though, a couple things that I would think about doing if you are looking to hire people remotely or via Zoom or via video conferencing. The first one is develop like a pre-application or an application process. Don't make it so easy to where you're like, yeah, I'll just fire off the resume and a cover letter to like a million people, and then you get all these applicants and you're having to sort through resumes. Because as you know, in this world, it is so much more than what's on the resume that qualifies you to work somewhere or unqualifies you to work somewhere.
Mhm.
And so we're looking for so much more than that. And so like you can look at our website, our careers page and stuff and look at some of the examples we have, but like, for us, you have to be super comfortable on video. If you're not, and you don't ever want to show your face on video, we're just not the right fit because we talk to our clients and we talk internally and that's just how we interact. And so you submit a video and I think we have like 5 to 8 questions that you have to answer that help you kind of like help us narrow down what's your answer going to be. You have to spend time on it. It's not just that quick resume you fire off. So that's one. Two is kind of plan out in your interview process, whether it's via email, whether it's or like via in person, face to face
Mhm.
rather, with video. Like, how is this candidate going to fit into or model your company's core values? And
Mhm.
so, like one of ours is, trust built through authenticity. And so, how are you going to ask questions where it shows you as the interviewee or interviewer, how are you going to like ask questions in a way in which you can ask or understand that candidate's ability to kind of show that core value, whether it's internally to your team or it's externally to clients and such that they might work with. So design questions around that. And the third one is understand like their soft skills. And so what I mean by soft skills is like, do they have the ability to manage their time well? Because that's huge when you work remote. Like we're not going to be this constant, like I know there's some like platforms that I'm going to measure everything you do. And I know if you've got your word processing application open or you're returning email or you're got your Photoshop app open, like we don't do that. And it's weird if you do. And so you've got to manage your time really well. So you've got to know how are you going to spend all your time? How are you going to make sure you hit deadlines, like those types of things. Understand like tech savviness because like there are some companies that are big enough that have that remote tech support. We're not one of them. And so at this point, you're like, hey, can you install Zoom to open it? Can you open a new app? Can you learn a new app on the fly? Like tech from a tech standpoint, understand that piece. And then understand like their ability to like written communication, verbal communication. Like, are they able to communicate really well? Obviously, all these are just those soft skills, but being able to pull those away is super healthy and really helpful. And you can't necessarily figure those out based on a resume.
Yeah, I
So
like that.
yeah.
I remember too during the interview process that you wanted me to send you a Vidyard video. And of course, like we use
Yep.
Vidyard all the time. We talk about Vidyard all the time. And I even like it when it's like, make sure you include a thumbnail video of your Vidyard video because
Totally.
if you can't figure that out, well, Google it.
Yep.
Like you should be
Totally.
able to do it. I think it's super awesome.
But it also shows like scrappiness. Like, can you like, especially, like Amanda, I've been in the sales process a lot together. So it's like, if maybe you've never heard of Vidyard, great. Either sign up for it, say you don't understand it, but this is what I did instead, like versus just, nope, don't know how to do that. Okay, well, you're probably not the right fit to then work for us. Like it just shows a lot by asking those types of specific questions.
Yep, absolutely. And we've been talking about this the whole time, really, but how does being remote change the interview process?
Yeah, it in some ways it does, in some ways it doesn't. I would say it's really easy to weed out candidates because in the traditional sense, you might schedule like 10 interviews in a day or something back to back to back, and they just have to show up in an office. Well, you can schedule them really fast, and I know within the first 30 seconds if I'm ready, if I want to carry the conversation on or not. Like, oh, I'm interested, I want to know more, or oh my gosh, how do I get out of this call? And so I would just say like, I don't know. Let me gather some thoughts. One of the things that I probably rely on is like it's a requirement to have excellent communication abilities. And so that's going to be obviously like this, like we're talking and you're being real on video and transparent and authentic and those types of things. But it's also like, can you follow up with a task? Because of the fact that we're going to require it in a task management or project management software, because that's how we roll. It's not going to be on a whiteboard in a conference room. There's no managers knocking on your door trying to figure this out or any of those types of things. And so like being able to kind of really understand that. I would say like one of the things that's changed too for us by developing a process for how you apply is it's cut down on I would call it almost like over application, just because it's so easy to apply for jobs. Like just send a resume, send a resume, send a resume. If you just send me an email with a resume, I'm probably not paying attention because it means that you actually haven't done any research about our company, and we're going to be pretty picky on who we bring on our team. So kind of it just weeds out that kind of candidacy, if you will. I would say the other thing for us that we've learned or how it's changed is it's helped us. We've had to really focus, hey, where do we find our candidates? And so like, it isn't the same as it used to be where, oh yeah, I looked on whatever, Craigslist, or I saw a job board somewhere or whatever. It's like hyper focused towards, we want remote developers in this, application or this platform, or we want remote designers, or we want project managers that have experience in XYZ. So like you can find a job board that would find those types of candidates that have that qualification. And so you're able to really like hyper focus a little bit more. Sure, I guess it's probably really similar in like if you're trying to bring them in like internal, like if you aren't remote and aren't doing things via video, but at the same time for us, it's helped us really narrow down our searches for people quite a bit faster. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. I guess I mentioned it earlier too, but we started remote. So we're not trying to replace anything. And so we built a culture around remote. And so I would like to say it's somewhat an attractive culture. People want to be a part of it. And so it's helped us kind of be pushing the envelope on that side because we're required to versus just like letting it just happen. We're actually taking some initiative in it. So, yeah.
I love that. And I agree. Yeah. How would you say, like, after someone joins the team, what are some ways that you can connect with them over video?
Yeah, good question. Just turn your video on and talk. Like, just don't overthink it. Lots of people overthink it and like, oh, I gotta look perfect. The lighting's gotta be perfect. And I got all the right answers. And, not really. I mean, you just kind of gotta like talk. Just talk to the person like you would if a friend called you on a FaceTime or on whatever video app and you're just talking to them. Like, oftentimes people will carry it around their house, or like we have somebody on our team that every time there's an internal call, he goes for a walk with his dog, and it's great. Like, that's awesome. Like, be creative with that. So I would say just like, yeah, turn the video on and talking, and then just don't overthink it. I don't know. That's just like it's super basic, but I think oftentimes people just overthink it. So.
No, I 100% agree. Like, you don't need to have some game every single Tuesday where you put team members on the spot and it's really uncomfortable. And I think that a really healthy Slack culture goes along well with it too. We have a handful of different channels. Some of them are just for us to post ridiculous things. Some are specific around interests that individuals have. So absolutely, I agree. Don't overthink it.
Yep.
And
For
now
sure.
here's the part I'm looking forward to the most because I have a feeling there's going to be some funny things here. What are some red flags that, employers should take note of during the Zoom interview process?
Well, if it's a Zoom video like interview, which would probably mean it's on Zoom from a video perspective, and so if they show up and don't turn their video on, I mean it's pretty hilarious because you're kind of like, well, so oh yeah, sorry, I wasn't prepared. I've gotten this one. Sorry, I wasn't prepared, and so I haven't, da da da. So I'm just gonna keep my video off. And you're like, what do you mean you weren't prepared? You've known about this for 2 weeks. Like that's totally fine, but it probably means you're just not going to be prepared. So should we end this now, or do you want to keep talking? So not having your video is a big deal. One of my favorite ones is the one where people they'll turn their video on, but it's like they're super close to the camera and it's not very well lit, and you can tell that like there's a bed that's partly made behind them, and it's like their house is a mess. Or I think somebody was telling me one about like they had like all these like old takeout boxes on the table behind them or something like that. And you're like, hey, just pay attention to your environment, because I'm probably not going to be super comfortable having you talk to clients if I can see that you've bought like Chinese and then pizza and then whatever other things are right behind you, and so, like just take care to that. So if you're seeing those types of things, the other ones are really funny, but like as far as like even the soft skills or whatnot, take into account what are they going to do for your company. And so if they're going to be like client facing and someone's going to talk to your customers, then you want them to be pretty personable. You want them to be like easy to talk to. You don't want to have only one word answers and then they're difficult to talk to, because then that's how they're going to be with clients. And so just kind of like, if think through in your own brain, like filter wise, like who are they going to be the ones interacting with? Because I've had some hilarious ones that you're like, oh my gosh, I'd never have you talk to a client because I'm having a hard time having a conversation with you. So what about you? Have you seen any like random red flags as you've talked to people?
Yes, and it kind of goes along with what you just mentioned. Like if they don't have a good like video cadence, if the pauses are too long, or if they're constantly interrupting, and I feel like interruptions happen more like on video conference than they do in real life.
Yep.
But if they don't know like the pace of a conversation, that can be weird. But on the other hand, like there are some roles where they need to like be able to show up as who they are, but they don't need to be that great of communicators if they're never going to see a customer and they're going to, like be a developer or, like somebody in IT. Like they don't necessarily need to like, have that relationship with the client, but they still need to be able to show up for their teammates. So that's important too.
Totally.
But
For sure.
yeah.
One of my favorite ones, and this is probably overly picky, but if you show up and your internet connection's really bad, probably should
I
find a
know.
different, because those are the ones you're like, well, if you don't have good internet, you're not going to work well on a remote team. That should be just like a given, because that's how we all talk and all communicate and, those types of things. So those are really funny. Also paying attention to like what you do and what you wear is still important.
Yes.
I remember having a call with somebody that was wearing like a straw hat, a tank top, and then occasionally they'd pick up something to have a smoke in the middle of their video call. And you're like, I don't know about this. Like, this is like taking remote to the full extreme, which is totally great, but it means you didn't really study our culture or study like, how we interact or what we wear or any of those types of things. So those are pretty funny too. So.
No, I do love that. And I think too, when people during the interview process kind of make light of the fact that it's remote, like, oh, like you can wear your pajamas all day long, or you can just, relax or whatever. Yeah, that's not what we're about here. We're hard workers.
Totally. Yep, for sure. Like parting thought for me really is like your best people are going to come from referrals. They always do. Same with it's like customers, everybody knows that, where it's like, hey, we want referrals, but like it's the same thing internally. And so focusing on building a culture that the people that you hire are going to really enjoy and like and feel like they're able to have input into and help build means that they're going to want their friends or their coworkers, or people that they know, or they're going to help promote like that job that you're trying to hire for and help bring people in. And so I bet 50% of the people we've hired are like, they're a friend of a friend or an acquaintance or past coworker or something like that. And a lot of it's just because it's very natural to like, hey, I want to bring good people with me and I worked with this person and they were awesome. And so I should, float the job in front of them or something like that. So building that like internal referral process too, because, say for instance, you use a recruiter, you're going to pay a top dollar for the recruiter. So it's okay that you might provide some sort of a cool incentive if someone is able to find a friend or find a past coworker or something like that to bring them in. So referrals have worked really well for us too.
Awesome. I love that. And I think it goes to speak to culture too, when you have people that are willing to refer their friends.
Yeah, for sure.
Tyler, this is awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Talk to you
See you
soon.
later.